Hi, how are you doing? Thank you so much for the honor and privilege that I have to have you join me on this YouTube channel, which is entitled From Israel with Love. Because as you know, I am Alan Turner, coming to you as always from my cave here, just below street level, here in the ancient, historical, beautiful, amazing city of Jerusalem in Israel. Thank you very much for joining me, and especially to those of you who are subscribers, because as you know, if you subscribe to YouTube, then they will tell you when I am doing a new video. And those of you who were with me just 3 or 4 days ago when I started a new video, which I told you then would be a 4-parter. I didn't want it to be a 4-parter, but it's just turned out that way in my research and preparation that we do it in 4 parts. So the first part was an introduction, and the second part is now, and I'm entitling this The Characteristics of a lack of self-love, and then I will deal with the causes of a lack of self-love, and then lastly in part 4 I will deal with the cure to self-love. And I've entitled this 4-part video, Love Yourself, Else You and Others Will Suffer. And it's a big subject that has preoccupied my ministry for many years, some of my teaching, and it's a very deep, profound subject, and it's one that we don't hear enough about from preachers. So we were looking in the first part, in the introduction, with people who are love cripples, and there are multitudes of them out there in the world today, and in the church. The body of Jesus Christ is full of love cripples. And such people often tend to put others down with their tongues because it makes them feel superior. And this is the root problem of an inability to love oneself. It's the feeling of rejection. And there are masses of people out there that have this feeling. I grew up with this feeling in my home. And it's an inability to love oneself, which I could not do for many, many, many years. And it's an inability to not only love oneself, but to lack in acceptance, in feeling accepted. And it has, in relationship with other people, as well as God, it has very serious consequences. So today we're going to look very briefly. It won't be long, at least I hope it won't be a long video today. You don't like long videos, I'm sure. But we're going to look at the characteristics of a lack of self-love. And I'm going to give you a few pointers for you to mull over and think and meditate upon. First of all, one's profession when one joins the workforce after college, school, university, whatever, is often chosen out of a self-centered interest. Now, what do I mean? Well, I'm going to share personal testimony. I have been in the ministry, Christian ministry, almost all my life. I've had very little time out to do any secular work. I started in secular work in a lawyer's office in my hometown of Bournemouth in England on the south coast, but I hated paperwork. And so I quit, and I quit law school after 2 or 3 years, and that was the end of that. Well, then it was during that time that God called me, and I have no doubts at all about the call of God on my life. But the thing is that I thought I could deal with what I wasn't aware of at that time, my root problem in my heart and my emotions of feeling rejected and being unable to love other people. I thought I could compensate and solve the problem by going into the Christian ministry. And I think that when I first started, even though I know God called me, at the same time, I think I needed to go out into the world for 10 years. I tell young people in churches today, you need to get out into the world before you go into Christian ministry or become a pastor or preacher, evangelist, missionary, whatever. You know, one is often motivated by such a deficiency of real love. And so one hopes to satisfy one's own needs by satisfying the needs of others. And I think that was a major reason why I went in to the pastoring churches. But in reality, the person concerned who looks in this kind of profession of helping other people, he or she needs the needy one more than the needy one needs him. Do you understand what I'm saying? That the person who's trying to deal with their root problem of an inability to love and a feeling of rejection, they go into some kind of work that is dealing with people, and really they are needier than the people they serve. And this is why I think so many Christians put service before serving. Jesus didn't call us to services. Jesus called us to serve and to wash one another's feet and to be a servant to other people. I learnt through learning what I'm sharing with you in this video over these 4 sessions, I learnt how to love myself. Many people who give money to charities, they do it for the same reason, because in giving to charities, it draws attention to them. So one of the chief characteristics is a choice of profession. The second characteristic of a lack of self-love, I think, can be the choice of a partner. But, you know, when we choose a partner, we often confront the person who's needy, will confront their spouse with insatiable demands, and they long for the love of that spouse without being able or willing to give any love in return. Marriage, my friends, is no sanatorium for love cripples. It's not. But you know, many go into marriages thinking that that's what they will do, and it's the wrong reason to get married. The acid test that I give to couples today is this. I want you to listen. Do you love your wife because you need her? Or do you love your wife because you love her? Do you need her? Sorry, I got that wrong. Forgive me. See, I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. Do you love your wife because you need her? Or do you need her because you love her? Now, if it's the former, then you're in trouble. We should love our wives, men, you know, and we need her because we love her, not the other way around. The third characteristic of a lack of self-love is hostility towards children. This is a rather horrible one. You know, the prime hostility against children, of course, is abortion. And the statistics of worldwide abortions today are horrifying. In Israel, we have one of the highest abortion rates of any country in the world. Because when you destroy that child in the womb, you are manifesting hostility towards human life that God creates. And along with abortion is, of course, anger. If the child is born and the child is raised in your home, you know, we should never, and I had to learn this as a parent, we should never discipline in anger, ever. But parents do, and school teachers do. I was caned a number of times when I did not deserve it. And I mean I did not deserve it. There were times, of course, when I did deserve it and I got caned. But school teachers discipline in anger. Prison guards discipline in anger. Police discipline in anger, and of course parents do. Hostility toward children is another characteristic of an inability to love oneself. Fourthly, I've written down fear, especially the fear of failure. Now, I want to tell you that fear and self-centeredness are terrible, terrible twins. That's what I call them. Fear and self-centeredness. And this fear of failure is a byproduct of modern man's what I call idolatry of accomplishment. In my generation and in my lifetime, more and more and more and more praise and adulation is given to those who accomplish. In other words, if you're in a golf tournament, you have to win. If you're in a football match, you have to come top. If you're in a cup final, you have to win the cup, because no one cares about losers. It's an idolatry of accomplishment. And the fear of failing in things that we do is a terrible, terrible problem. You see, we worship success. In other words, we only worship winners, which is all wrong, because someone has to lose. So from childhood, we are indoctrinated with a philosophy that performance determines your worth in life. My mother based everything upon my term report at the end of my term in my school life. And my word, I tell you, did she ever come at me if I didn't succeed in virtually every subject. Performance determines worth has been the philosophy of the 20th and 21st century. And the ultimate result, of course, is fear. We don't want to fail. We fear failure. And how do we deal with this fear? We do it by removing the self, meaning suicide. The North American Indian statistics on suicide is scary, absolutely scary, because many of them in the Indian tribes throughout North America, many of them feel worthless. They've been treated by the white man as nothing. And apart from the Jews, I can tell you that the next people who suffered more than any other race in the world is the North American Indian. I remember Derek Prince saying that on one occasion. He's right. The fifth characteristic of an inability to love is our idolatry of people, especially famous people. I was guilty of this. I think most of us are when we're children, teenagers, I should say, and young adults. We idolize certain people, especially celebrities. Have you ever seen boys at a football game rushing to get autographs from their favorite players? You see, we idolize any person who can influence our status in life. If anyone can influence me, I will idolize that person. And they don't have to be celebrities. But we commit this sin, I'm going to call it that, of idolizing people. The sixth characteristic, and I'm almost through, and I see my time is almost through, is an abysmal absence of joy in the person's life. I didn't have joy for many, many, many years, and yet the Bible told me that in God's presence, in the presence of the Lord, there's fullness of joy, and at his right hand are pleasures forevermore. I didn't believe that, or if I didn't believe it, I didn't know it and didn't understand it. But there's an abysmal absence of joy in the life of a person who cannot love himself or herself. And lastly, the seventh characteristic is we cannot disagree with anyone because we have a fear of rejection. So, when people came out with statements and opinions and thoughts, even if I strongly disagreed in my head and in my heart, I would never say so. I'd keep quiet. We cannot disagree with anyone. Now, I probably disagree with more people than I agree with them. And I tell them so. And yes, I have people, even in the last 2-3 weeks, who've walked out of my life because I had a disagreement with them. They cannot take it. It's a fear of rejection. And these are just a few of the characteristics of a lack of self-love. And I'm going to close positively today's video, and I hope you look forward to part 3, which I'll put on, God willing, in 3 or 4 days. And in Romans chapter 15 and verse 7, this is what Paul says: accept one another as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God. Accept one another, just as Christ accepted you, in order to bring praise to God. And now I must stop, because they're working on this cave. These stones, as you know, I've told you many times before, they're 600 years old, and now they're letting in water. So my landlord is having an incredibly expensive job done upstairs, and the drill's starting, so now I need to quit. Accept one another just as Jesus Christ accepts you as you are. You don't have to prove anything to him. You don't have to be something. You don't have to perform. Just receive his acceptance of you, and then accept your fellow man. Okay, enough, Alan. I'll say thank you for joining me today. God bless you. And remember, you will not grasp the truth of this very deep subject unless you see all 4 videos. Part 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? So if you didn't see the introduction 3-4 days ago, please look back, subscribe, and then you can find it. And this is part 2, and next time I will deal with the causes of rejection, okay, and an inability to love oneself. We'll deal with that, and then we'll look at the cure. So you have to stay with me to the end of the road. God bless you. Thank you once again for joining me. It's been my privilege to have you on this channel with me. Bye-bye.